Hey guys, check this out. I am officially now sponsored by Dubby. Dubby is a clean energy drink made to give you focus with no crash. If you guys are like me, you're always needing a burst of energy, especially with one with no crash. Dubby contains vitamins, amino acids, a nootropic, and 150 milligrams of caffeine. It keeps me awake with no jitters, guys. Check it out. Merch link is in the bio. Dubby.
Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's the radioactive pop with Danny Limelight, United Wrestling Network World Heavyweight Champion. And make sure you tune into the Alliance vlog every week. You heard it here first. Straight from Bobby.
Yo, everybody. It is the pre-party with J. Cal. But J. Cal decided that going on a family vacation was more important than the NWA fan. Don't know where he gets his priorities at. But here we are. Here I am as the substitute. And maybe, just maybe, we'll be able to pull off a semi-decent show. But that really depends on your participation. Because if you don't participate, this will be really short. So, how is everybody out there? I see Double D, Devin Dowling, our good friend Willie, Millennial Noob, Sam Retro, and of course Willie has his Tyrus joke. You know, Tyrus space would probably be useful on poison bottles and toilet paper. I'm not going to dispute that one a little bit. So, how's everybody doing today? What's going on in the world? What are you thinking about? Are you ready for Turkey Day for those of you in the United States? Are you ready to eat a lot? Do you have a favorite family turkey tradition or non-turkey tradition? Or do you even know what I'm talking about? So, of course, getting an hour late start here because, well, when I first agreed to do this, I forgot I worked. And so I didn't get off until about 4 o'clock. I'm also battling a head cold. I'm currently medicated, but if the meds start to wear off, you'll probably see me looking like I'm about to fall asleep. Hopefully it won't get that bad, but you never know, do you? So, Willie says he's ready to eat, belch, and sleeping. I certainly agree with that. Double D says I went to that turkey takedown show last Saturday. It was pretty great. So that's awesome. Did they take down turkey just every, And Sam Retro's hungry all the time. So Sam, I understand that. I really, 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 really do. And Thanksgiving is one of the only holidays to skip a diet. And I'm not going to argue with that either, Iron Shrek. I've actually lost some weight recently. I know it's hard to tell on video, but I'm actually down a couple of pant sizes. So, hey, I'm a happy man. Lost a few pounds here and there, hopefully. So, Willie's like, I like wild duck and goose instead of turkey on Thanksgiving. Hey, that's probably more what they had at the quote unquote first Thanksgiving, but you won't get me on that tangent, or I'll never get off of it. So we'll see how it goes. Double D says no turkey takedown, but Elijah, the former Elias, and Tommy Dreamer beat a tag team CXR with a Corgan bologna and cheese curd. I don't even know how to take that. And the Iron Truck is a ham and turkey man. You know, my family, we've always just had the turkey. Been other places where they have, hams. But in my family, it was just always a turkey and lots of sides. My mom made a lot of sides: dressing, mashed potatoes, gravy, corn, peas, green beans, sweet potatoes, mashed potatoes, which I may have already said, but they're my favorite. So we eat a lot. Dressing or stuffing, for those of you who put it in the bird, or I put it in me, and I get pretty stuffed. So we understand how that goes. All right. Willie says DKM saw Tom Latimer and EPW. Is EPW affiliated with the NWA? Not at this time that I know of. I haven't heard anything, but I think Tom's trying to take the EC3 route and appear in as many indies as he can. I actually saw that on YouTube. It was a pretty good match. I don't remember the name of the young man that was wrestling him, but it was worked kind of the way it was worked in the old days. World champion came in, made him look good. It did not end in a clean pin, which I thought it should have, but they did build a storyline for that promotion based on it, which is kind of what you do. So Iron Truck loves green bean casserole. It's interesting. I know a lot of people that like it, yet it's the only time of year that they eat it. And I'm kind of that way with pumpkin pie. I like pumpkin pie, but Thanksgiving's about the only time I eat it. I might have a small piece if somebody makes something in October. And so what do you guys think about just Latimer going to other independents, putting the title on the line? We praised EC3 for doing it. It looks like Latimer's following that trait. In my opinion, Latimer's actually better in the ring than EC3 has been recently. So, we talked about EC3 seems to have a hard time finding third gear, sometimes second gear. I think he should. I think he's probably in his right spot right now, but Latimer can actually put on a pretty decent match of at least a 15-minute length. I don't know how good he is in the longer ones. So, I don't know. Are you guys ready to watch Power? It's actually on right now, but I know a lot of people don't watch it when it first comes on. I have a hard time if I try to watch it live. So I typically wait for it to be out there a couple of hours before I do that. Because if I try to watch it live, it slows down and the app crashes a lot on me. But I understand that on today's show, they're supposed to have Knox and Murdoch defend the titles against the Fixers. Latimer will be there. We'll see the Slime Balls versus the Country Gentlemen, which I think that's probably a good match there. And a submission match between Baron Von Storm and Magic Jake Dumas. I haven't seen Jake in a long time, so it's kind of interesting that he's going to be back on the show. They don't really seem to know what to do with him. Sometimes they want to present him as like a contender, but he loses a lot, which doesn't ever stop them from granting anybody a title shot. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? On Dumas returning? And should he be put over more, or should he be doing the putting over like he currently seems to be? Double D says, I love Latimer promoting everywhere. He's going and putting on great matches. All right. That's hard to dispute. Latimer will soon be heading to the UK, which I did not know, but it's a good thing if he is. Why is that a submission match? Double D, I have no earthly idea why. NWA doesn't always do things for rhyme or reason. Sometimes they build a story, and sometimes they just, decide to have a match that they think sounds interesting. I suppose it has to do because of Storm using the claw now and how that's a submission move. So I guess we'll see. Excuse me while I take a drink. It's easier to do when you're not the only one talking. Willie says Magic Jake is a mid-card wrestler. Yeah, that's kind of where they present him as. But when was the last time he's gotten, a series of wins, or even a win recently? Primarily, he's used in enhancement a way, and I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but I don't know that I have any interest in him wrestling a submission match against Storm, especially Baron Von Storm. So, yeah, maybe it's just me. Would not be the first time. So, do you think Tom Latimer would be a great actor? Would be a great actor than Camille, because I can imagine him in the live action Call of Duty movie. I honestly don't know. I haven't really thought of him as an actor. And even though I know Camille made that one movie, I don't know that I really think of her as an actor or actress. So, you got me on that one. I don't know. I mean, he has the look. Does he have that? Does he have the acting ability? I don't know. All right. Is that a blanket that keeps appearing over your left shoulder? Probably. It's my bed that's behind me, so it's probably a blanket. It's probably what the dog's sleeping on. Let's see. Iron Shrek, without enhancement, we wouldn't have big stars. And that's true. And I have no problem with enhancement talent. And I have no problem with enhancement matches. I do have some problems when they use enhancement talent to challenge for titles that for no apparent reason. Which, the NWA seems the quickest way to get a title shot is to be on a losing streak. But yeah, if you just want a solid wrestling organization back in the day, back in my day, you started with some enhancement matches, and you kind of had your mid-card guys and your mid-card feud going, and then you had your main event talents. And so I don't have a problem with enhancements if they're used properly. So we will see. Double D, Devin Dowling says Latimer could play Luigi in Mario 2. I'll take your word on it. So there's Jake. What do you think about the slime balls or boys or slimy critters or whatever they are taking on the Country Gentlemen? Doesn't say it's a U.S. title match, so I don't know if it's non-title or title, but is that, the game tonight is that something you're interested in? Is that something you want to see? Is that a quote-unquote good thing? And then, of course, we have the main event of Murdoch. Murdoch's taking on the Fixers. Again, the Fixers were recently in the U.S. tag title 4-way, in which Billy basically acknowledged that they've been losing, so he wasn't sure why they were in the U.S. title 4-way, and now they're challenging for the world title. I don't know what the logic is. Hopefully they'll give a reason, but I suppose it'll just be the Murdochs are the fighting champions, and they take on all comers, and it doesn't matter that what your record is. So then the question becomes is, who would you want to see Murdoch's challenge? Who do you think deserves a shot at the world titles? So, well, got slight disagreement in the chat, I see. Double D likes or love the slime balls. What do you hate the slime balls? So, but strong emotions, that's typically good. Better than no emotion. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm kind of interested in the match. I'm interested in seeing if they develop the slime balls at all. And if so, how? I'm kind of... I thought the singles match they had, was it last week, 2 weeks ago, with Tommy Rant and I believe it was AJ, was pretty good. It was better than what I was expecting. Which I admit that was a very low bar because I wasn't really expecting much of anything. But I thought they did a good job. I thought it was a good TV match. We did some storyline building in it with KFC in his rule book that's pretty big for something that's, if you've ever seen the NWA rule book, it would fit on about 4 sheets of paper, sometimes 2, depending on how many rules they put in it. Forgive me just 1 second. got a better shot at the blanket, so you should be happy now. When my boys needed something. And hey, it happens. Things happen in the real world, unfortunately. And getting back, Willie says, country gentlemen deserve an opportunity to wrestle Murdochs for the NWA World Tag Team Championship. Well, all they have to do is give up the U.S. belts and they can challenge for the World Tag Team Championship. And, of course, we'll get on to about how absolutely stupid that is. And it's been done once with the Immortals. So, yeah, I mean, if they could just challenge for the titles and remain champions, win or lose especially, I would be all for putting that together. But, yeah, Billy's crazy. I think that's the right phraseology. He's crazy, and he just makes up this weird shit out of nowhere. And I don't know why. I don't know. It's never been a standard that somebody had to give up a title. Now, it's happened in wrestling before. Paul Orndorff gave up, of course, the national championship to focus on Ric Flair winning the world title. And there have been some other similar stories where a regional guy would give up his title to focus on challenging for the world championship. And I believe once a year, in the old TNA, the X Division champion had the right to give up the X title to challenge for the world title. That was bad, like most TNA booking at that time. So, of course, that's what Billy went with, apparently. I don't know where he sold this idea. Double D says Billy's not crazy. He saw one. Sam Hine. Bob's your uncle. So, I guess. I don't know. I do feel the NWA limits themselves when people have to give up titles to have title matches, and that a natural thing would be your number one contender and the national champion targeting the world title. And it's something that can, storyline can be brought out of, well, similar to what happened in EPW that we were talking about earlier, where, someone could cost the national champion his title shot, and that would allow for a feud between that person and the national champion. And the world champion could move elsewhere, but that makes too much sense, so we're not going to do any of that. And, for those who don't know much about me and my history, I first started watching wrestling in the late 70s. And although at the time I lived in Nebraska, which was an AWA territory, I didn't actually see AWA wrestling. It may have been on somewhere, but not on the channels that we got. And so I didn't really get to see wrestling until I would go visit a friend's house, and they had cable, and so I would see Georgia Championship Wrestling there. And that's where I first kind of saw it and learned about it. And Harley Race was champion. He was actually only in his second reign as champion throughout most of that. His second reign was his longest. It was like 2.5 years. That was his time as dominant champion before he started doing those hot-shotting the titles. And he hot-shotted the title 4 different times. Dusty Rhodes, Baba twice, and Tommy Rich. Before finally dropping it to Dusty Rhodes for Dusty's longest title reign of, I think it was 88 days. Very short reign. And so I'm very used to that kind of bigger than life NWA title because I have family that lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So when we come visit them, you know, I could see world class. It wasn't even world class at the time. I think they were just that championship sports on a local station, local independent station. And so we could see that. And, you know, Ric Flair was champion. So I could see Ric Flair as champion here. I could see Ric Flair as champion in Georgia. Of course, Georgia would occasionally show clips from Mid-Atlantic. And I understood title that was bigger than any single promotion. And I actually kind of miss those days. I'm not the biggest fan of promotional titles, but it's the world we live in today. So, hey, Terry, hello to you. And I don't know. It's something I miss. I miss some of the old school stuff. And, you know, I hear a lot of people telling me all the time, you know, old guy yelling at clouds or whatever you want to say. But when modern wrestling does some of that old style stuff, it gets over with the fans. And look, there were certainly things in the old day that I didn't like. I mean, the idea of the stupid referee who doesn't see the heel cheating or will, in a tag team match, will forcibly force, you know, the face back physically, you know, hug him and push him. And he didn't see the tag, and so the other face wrestler needs to get out of there, or he's being taunted and he wants to get in there, and then that same stupid referee totally misses all the stuff that the heels do. I hate the stupid referee, and I hate the incompetent referee, and I hate the referee that stands around and doesn't do anything. And you know, if you want more time for your wrestlers outside, then change your 10 count to a 20 count. That's what it was in World Class. I think St. Louis used a 20 count at one time. I think Ring of Honor used 20 count. And it gave them more time to do it. But this, you know, taking 5 seconds to count one. Ugh, kill me now. All right. My soapbox rant for the day. Take that, Jared Fritz. Yeah, let's see. New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong Count. Yeah, I think All Japan was as well. I don't remember. Too bad Doty's not here. He can tell us, but I think that gives. I was watching a very old clip, and I don't even remember who was wrestling, but this was even like pre-Pat O'Connor being champion. So it was sometime in the 50s. And they did the spot where the wrestler goes into the ropes and gets their head caught between the first and second rope and is sitting there strangling or whatever. And, you know, modern day wrestling, they would, you know, the referee freaks out and stops and goes and try and gets the wrestler out of the ropes because, you know, it's terrible. He's going to die and everything like that. In the match I watched, the guy did it, and the referee counted to 10 and called the match off because he was in the ropes for a 10 count. Okay, he was basically counted out because he had to count 10 to get back in the ring, and he couldn't do it. I just thought, wow, I can't even imagine something like that. I mean, that wasn't even the case in my day. I can't imagine something like that today. I think the fans would blow up. So, it's the good old days that we all long for. I knew I was getting really old when somebody did a Facebook page called Old School Wrestling, and it had Shawn Michaels. So, yeah. My, how time changes. So, what else is going on in the wrestling world? What's going on in the NWA? What are you guys thinking about, talking about? Or what's going on elsewhere? Who else? Are you guys keeping up with ROH? Anybody keeping up with MLW? Or, heaven forbid, one of the big two, AEW or WWE? I heard on a 10-minute wrestling news thing this morning that they finally introduced the women's Intercontinental title, which I thought was just absolutely insane, that they either didn't announce it at the same time or that they didn't wait until the U.S. title was filled. But, hey, I don't know. Let's see. NWA Chicago and the women's TV champ. She's won, and we haven't seen her since. Yeah. Welcome to today's NWA. What I really don't know is who remembers when she won the title? I mean, I can go look it up, but was it even, had she won it before these tapings, or were these tapings done before she won the title? Because that sounds like something that the NWA would do. Let's see. Double D also says there was a 4 versus 4 match at the show I was at Saturday. The ref had no control. Hey, come on, ref. Get him out of there. He looks right at me and threw up the arms, just shrug your shoulders. Yeah, I don't know if I'd die laughing or if I would just cry. Let's see. MLW is having a Bischoff one-night gig. So Bischoff's going to be on a show for one night? Is that what you're saying? So you're saying that's big news? So you're saying your thing above was big news? Okay. Or there's more big news? Double D says huge. So Bischoff sucks, says Sam Retro. It's interesting. Bischoff got into wrestling from being a sales guy. He was an announcer at AWA, wasn't very good. He left there, went to WCW, and somehow ended up in charge, and nobody really knows why. He had a streak where he was paying a lot of old WWE guys and told a few interesting stories during that time. Ran it off the road into the ground, and people talk like Eric Bischoff now is some kind of wrestling genius. He had a good year and a half. Okay. What's the old saying? Even a blind squirrel finds a nut. There goes. Wrestling in 2020 has been horrible so far. Just my opinion. Well, not going to argue with you. Roswell says he's producing the event. So Eric Bischoff's going to produce an MLW event. So is he like running it completely? Is he booking it and everything? That sounds stupid. I mean, I'm assuming he's going to have some constraints on him. He can't bring in, Jack Black and put the title on him. Really? GM for 5 years. He was general manager for 5 years of WCW, so I assume that's what you're saying. So, yeah, you can argue that you can argue that 5 years wasn't very long, but he was really only successful a year and a half of it. So that's 3.5 years that he wasn't successful. And you can blame the ultimate failing of WCW on Vince Russo, and I wouldn't blame you too much if you did. But ultimately, Turner execs had no idea what they were doing, and then Time Warner execs had no idea what they were doing and didn't even understand why it was there. So, we'll see. We'll see. Sam Retro says in Hogan, so I'm assuming he's talking about WCW. Hogan was a big part of that success for the year and a half. I get mad when people go like, well, what killed the NWO? And they'll say, oh, when Hogan joined it. And I'm like, oh, there wasn't an NWO until Hogan joined it. He's the one that used the phrase and got the term. What killed the NWO was adding 80 wrestlers, including enhancement talent, and also Eric Bischoff joining. Because when he joined, he was the power of WCW. So why did he need to have another organization to take over? He could have done everything. He didn't need the NWO. So it never makes sense for me when the higher power, to use a Vince McMahon term, is somebody that's already in control of the company, because then they don't need the rebel group. It makes no sense to me. Sam Retro says NWO did the same thing for almost 4 years. Yeah, they kind of did. Well, I mean, they split, and there was Wolfpack, and I can't remember what the other one was. And then they all got back together, but then I can't remember, like the top NWO guys were one group, and the other NWO guys, the mid-carders were called another group. So I don't know. So sorry you're late, Fuzz. Sorry you're late. We'll overlook it this one time, but next time you need to be on time. But we're glad you're here. Let's see, Willie. Did you watch wrestling from Houston Coliseum in Houston, Texas? No. By the time I was really getting into wrestling, that had basically already become more of a Mid-South. I did see Mid-South for a while, and after I moved here to Texas, they did have a syndicated show on here. So I did see them. I did see Southwest Championship Wrestling, which was Joe Blanchard's promotion. It was kind of like a mini World Classic. And it rose and failed in a very short timeline. At one time, they could have been the next big thing because they were on, I believe it was USA until WWE or then WWF got an exclusive deal, and they lost out. They crowned a world champion and world tag team champions, which was kind of foolish because they were trying to make themselves bigger than they really were. You know, be what you are. I kind of feel the same thing happened when Mid-South went Universal Wrestling Federation. You know, don't try to be bigger than what you really are. Nobody was really going to go national at that time outside WWE or WWF at that moment. So, I don't know. Sam Retro, A team and B team. Is that what they call it? Is that what they were called? The NWO? It makes sense. I'd work with it. But watching a week later, like I normally do. Yeah, well. Terry says they lived near Houston in the early 70s, and it was a great program. I've seen a lot of the Houston things. Of course, there's a lot that's been out because of Bruce Tharp and everything. So I've seen a lot of tapes, and I mean I do remember seeing stuff even back in the day. And but if you go 78 and before, a lot of that was just Paul Bosch was an interesting man. He basically rarely booked his own shows, and he would bring in other people from other wrestling promotions. He actually brought in Tito Santana when Tito Santana was still the WWF Intercontinental Champion. This was just kind of right before they started their big national push. And, of course, he'd bring in the AWA champion after he and Harley Race had a falling out. And sometimes he brought him in before, and it was Dick Bockwinkel, who, according to some, had a stake in the territory. I don't know. But in the 70s, it was primarily booked by whoever was booking for Fred's. And, some of that was Gary Hart in the late 70s, mid-late 70s. So, yeah. He was an interesting guy. He was never actually an official NWA member, although he was often presented as one. And I don't even know how he got the world title change for, it was supposedly supposed to be Funk and Briscoe, and Briscoe was going to win the title. It ended up being Briscoe and Race, but that was actually done under Fritz's, Jack Atkinson's membership. So, hold on just one. All right, guys. So, I don't know. Who else watched all right, give me just 1 second, guys. Ah, the joys of children. Okay. Sorry for the dead air. Sorry for the dead time. It's getting to be about 5:45. Is there anything else that anybody wants to talk about? Unfortunately, I'm not as used to this or as good at this as Jake Howe is. So, do you guys want to keep going, or do you want to go watch your NWA show on X? And how long do you think they'll be on X? But it says that the only connection he ever had to Texas was that. I'm assuming he's talking about either the Houston shows or the Von Erichs. Oh, no. Okay, let's see. Got it. He has a mission. I remember promotions trying to put over the Von Erichs as these Texas superstars, and I just thought they were gawky and weird. As a team, they weren't over with me at all. Now I know better. That was his only connection with Texas. Yeah, Gary Hart used to tell a story that he would call around, and Fritz would call around trying to get the boys places in the other promotions, and they, nobody ever seemed that interested. And he and Eddie Graham had a good relationship, so when he and David had a falling out, it was natural for David to go to Florida and spend around a year there. And Kevin did a little bit in Georgia. Kerry went to Georgia once or twice. They would occasionally go to the Mid-Atlantic area and wrestle as, the brothers would wrestle as a tag team. Often not on the shows, just, like on TV shows, they would just go and, be part of a tour for a week or so. Make the.
Is there anything that leaves your keys and take them off?
And everything. So, yeah, it was pretty good. Then they exploded, and then all of a sudden everybody wanted to use the Von Erich ones and was calling. But by then, Fritz was pretty well established and taking off, and so he wasn't willing to give them up for very long. So, I don't know. It's called lack of knowledge when it comes to Eric Bischoff. I would agree. Bischoff was just never really a wrestling mind. He had other skills and talents, but he wasn't really a wrestling man. I think his last stint in WWE proved that. It was just weird seeing them walk into a show without knowing about their place. Well, yeah, I mean, the very first time I ever saw Kerry Von Erich was actually in an advertisement or was a clip of World Class shown on Georgia, because he was going to come in and wrestle the Great Muta, who was also wrestling in Texas. So that was, they showed it was like a 2-minute match that he had on the World Class show back when they still wore feathers in their hair or headbands or something like that. It also took me forever to understand a young Ted DiBiase when I went back as an adult to watch old shows versus the $1 Million Man when I first saw him as a kid. I like DiBiase, but I never really saw him until his heel stint in Georgia. And so that's how I knew him. I hadn't really seen much of his earlier work. I didn't know about his feud with the Freebirds. And I remember I was shocked later learning that after Harley Race, that the world title was basically the decision of who to give the world title to had basically come down to Ric Flair or Ted DiBiase, and Flair won by a single vote of the board. And so it was, I don't know that I ever saw Ted as world championship material. Now, I've gone back and seen some of his old stuff since then. And he was a good wrestler and he could wrestle. But I don't know. Maybe it was because most of what I saw was his time towards the end of Mid-South and then his $1 Million Man character, which I never liked. So, so Fuzz was saying now he understands the old pre-WWF Ted. But at first he was so confused. Yeah, I very much relate to that. Terry goes, I don't think Billy Corgan has a real wrestling money either. No, he doesn't. He may be a good musician, but he doesn't understand wrestling. And I still say Billy's one of those people that I think he's more interested in proving the haters wrong. And I've said this before, he wants a successful wrestling promotion only in the sense that he wants what he puts out for wrestling to be successful. Not that he's interested in doing what it takes to make a successful wrestling promotion, or he would have given up the book by now. So Sam Retro says Ted DiBiase should have been NWA champion. I mean, I can't agree or disagree with that. Obviously, there are plenty of promoters that thought he should have been. But I don't. One of the things that often happened with the NWA champion was that the champion would burn out. That life was too much for him. And Ric Flair was. He wasn't one of those. He didn't really burn out. He loved that life. He wasn't really much different than the person he was on TV as. So, I don't know. Let's see. Jerry doesn't think. As a wrestling might as well. All right. John, I was completely worked by $1 Million Man. Hated him for years. Yeah, even after I stood kicking. Well, I was kind of that way with Tully Blanchard. It took me a long time. Tully Blanchard and Buddy Roberts were two people it took me a long time to figure out that, oh, by the way, those guys were good. So, James Bell, they needed the Freebirds. I'm assuming he's talking about the Von Erichs. Yeah, that was definitely what was the spark. They needed somebody, and it helped World Class in two ways. One, by creating the 6-man title, it got the brothers out of some of the other titles. So Kevin didn't need to be the once in every other American champion, nor David the once in every other Texas champion. And after David passed, they didn't. It was a long time before Von Erich held the Texas title. And it helped the area a long way. And it did make them, that's what gave them the more national exposure, was that feud. Terry, whatever happened to Jordan Clearwater? Jordan Clearwater, last I heard, was doing bodybuilding competitions. So I don't know if he wrestles at all, but I don't think so. I think he's basically left wrestling and does bodybuilding. If anybody knows differently, let me know. Buzz, I think Billy loves wrestling and shines when he listens to folks like Homicide or Dr. Tom. I won't dispute that he loves wrestling. I don't know how much he listens to the other people. He seems to be more in the women's division. I think Jazz has a lot of influence over that. We'll see. You know, he makes improvements. Things do get better for a while, but he can't seem to find the right balance. That might be the best way of saying it. He can't find the balance in what he needs to put out. So Jordan seems like I got in the building, maybe into a family life. Yeah, I honestly don't know if he's married, has kids, or what. It's just that damn ego. Damn retro. Sam, I'm going to assume you're talking about Billy. So, yeah. You know, Billy likes to say, well, he did what he wanted to in music and he was pretty damn successful. Well, you know, there are a lot of things I can be successful at, and there are a lot of things that I cannot be successful at. You want to put a server together, I can help you do that. And I can do a pretty good job. You want to put a car together, probably not the right guy. That's just the way it goes. And Bud says, yep, agree on balance after watching Carnival Land. I think the skill and strength of who's booking with Billy either win or lose and the wrestler. Yeah, I don't know. It gets to the point where it's hard to figure out. And I just don't know. It's like, you know, somebody goes, Jay, I guess it was Jay was saying, you know, like sometimes it sounds like, oh, well, Billy's giving you what you wanted this, and you still don't like it. Well, yeah, he's giving us that, but not in the way that we meant. You know? And like I was saying about last week's Power ago, it was kind of schizophrenic. Either put on enhancement matches or put on competitive matches, or find a mix in there. That's right. Which, you know, would basically be to have like, you know, 2 to 3 enhancement matches, and then, you know, maybe one mid-card competitive match. That's what your TV title's supposed to be for. But we have to give Max the title. But DKM, give us your insight on NWA Pro Wrestling under Billy Corgan leadership. Billy's done some good. Obviously, he has name value. Obviously, the production of his show at various times has, you know, who's doing the backstage stuff has changed. But, you know, like the camera work, he's invested money. He's gotten some stuff. Nobody's been able to put on a show in the NWA as a main NWA person for so long, other than when Marquez did Hollywood. So he's putting out something. He's got good production value. He's got good talent. He doesn't use all his talent, I think, in the correct way. But he's got talent. He's got good talent. And I think if he doesn't understand the concept of building up stuff. He seems to be one of those, throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. Or, oh, do you know what would be good? This would be good. This would be good. And then changes his mind. No, let's do this. And then from the very beginning, he's had a chip on his shoulder. Both he and Dave Lagana, when Dave Lagana was there, both had huge chips on their shoulder. And I think Lagana's was actually bigger. And it's like, okay, we get it, Billy. You've had the NWA, 7 years now. And has it grown much? I don't know. Has power increased in the people who are seeing it or decreased? I don't know. Because, I don't even know who owns a lot of power. The original stuff was all taken down when they went to fight. After the deal with fight completely ended, everything was taken off fight and was put on, and then some of the older stuff was put on CW, and then whatever their CW tapings were. And then now all those are gone. And so, like one of the things that you try to build is a video catalog. I don't even know if he has one. Because, where can I see any of the previous powers, any of the previous pay-per-views, anything? He's put a match here or there on YouTube, but I mean, he doesn't have a streaming service. I wouldn't pay to watch a streaming service, so I don't really know. I don't know. I don't feel like he's not a wrestling mind, as we were talking about earlier. He gets a lot of attention for who he is. He gets a lot of people that talk to him. At first he had a third TV deal, and according to either Galley or Kyle or whoever, it was supposed to be with CW, and then after the CW thing crashed and burned, and they were still talking about how he has a TV deal and, well announced and blah, blah, blah. And we still haven't gotten anything. So, I mean, right now it's just a wrestling on X. I'm assuming X gives him more money than he got on YouTube. A lot of people who used to make money on YouTube are flat out saying they're not making money like they used to. Things have gotten bad there. I don't know. I've never made money on YouTube, so I can't answer that question. So, telephone. Billy is a musician and the son of a musician, and he really has no blue-collar background, which is true. And I'm assuming you mean that because wrestling's always tended to be a blue-collar sport or form of entertainment. John, I'd love to go back and rewatch all of that stuff, especially the stuff I paid for. Yeah, me too. I mean, I would love to go back and see some of the stuff from the first season. See some of the people that were there and, everything. Mainly because, I'm old and I've forgotten things. So, I don't know. Well, I feel like that's a good place to unwind and sign off. I thank everybody for joining me. Didn't even realize I'd already been gone an hour. I wasn't sure this was going to make 20 minutes at one point. So thanks everybody for your time, your space. If you haven't already, push the like button. It really does help the algorithms, as Mr. J says. And he'll be back next week. Of course, as you guys know, we're not going to have an episode of the Alliance Guys podcast on Thanksgiving. I believe he has an interview that's scheduled to go up. So, unfortunately, there's no Survivor Series and no Starcade like there used to be back in the day. or world-class Star Wars. But we'll live. And so with that, if I can find the right video, which I can't, so we'll just do the podcast guys close. And with that, we'll see you all next time.
Thanks for joining the stream. This has been a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you'll never miss a future episode? I'd also like to remind you we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. before NWA Power. You can find us on social media at The Alliance Blog. And until next time, we